let's look a little bit more at investigations. And as we've noted here, it seems like really the first step in any instance where reasonable suspicion arises is to go through the process of contacting law enforcement or child protective services. Oftentimes that's dictated by child abuse reporting laws that are in every state. As I said earlier, it was a little bit surprising to me the first time I thought through this and interacted with you all as we were planning for today, that, the first step isn't for somebody on the church to go in and start doing, their own investigating, their own digging into what's being alleged. I think it'd be helpful for our audience to hear, why shouldn't the church conduct its own investigation first?
Well, thank you, Matt. First of all, that could be obstruction of justice. Let's start there. If there's been a reporting of a criminal or a crime and the law enforcement are going to be investigating, they certainly don't want somebody else investigating, and they often take that very personally. The reporting laws and the cultural dynamics have shifted enough, as I mentioned. There isn't enough time except to determine, is there a reasonable suspicion that child abuse occurred, and report it. Teresa said, it's immediately, it's 24 hours, it's 48 hours, whatever your state standard is, it's very quickly. So once the church determines if a reasonable suspicion of child abuse, then they immediately report and they allow law enforcement to take over and they step back. Now, the only thing they should do at that point is what we've been talking about earlier, is communicating and having a proper response to that once they think that's appropriate. Domestic child abuse investigations also are rarely done in-house anymore, again, due to the criminal child abuse reporting laws. However, if child abuse does not have a prosecution or a finding, in essence, the prosecutors or the law enforcement don't go forward with it, or somehow it doesn't culminate in a conviction, there may be instances when you would want to investigate further. And that would be something we'll handle down the road here about how would you do an investigation. But I mentioned up front that probably should be from somebody externally, not internally, because we've come to realize that if there's child abuse, it's a very explosive allegation, and people are not trusting that internal sources are going to be able to do this competently or objectively. So you really need to have that outside firm, and I think probably law firm, who does this, do that investigation.
There's also other tools you can consider in addition to investigations if you find that you need more information. And again, it's situationally dependent, but different types of psychological assessments to see whether maybe a child has issues that might indicate that he's an offender or even an adult. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. The investigation that presents a lot of tricky questions, and I'll just speak really briefly on this because I could go on for hours. We're actually just about to release a book called Handling Ministry Allegations, Responses and Investigations. And later, when you get the QR code to our resources, you won't find the link there just yet because the book's at the printer, but we'll add that as soon as we have the link. So if you want to know a lot about investigations and responses, go grab the book. But just a few real fast bullet points. I agree with Rob that at some point you may need a qualified third party, whether that's a legal counsel or investigative firm, psychological experts. You may need to consider paid administrative leave if you have accused employees. You may have to put other people on some kind of administrative leave pending outcomes, such as volunteers or members. As everyone's been talking about, you'll need to manage your internal and external communications. And you will want to be very careful in the process that everyone is treated fairly. And I always say that the intuitive response from ministries is usually wrong, and it usually involves treating someone unfairly, whether that's the person bringing forward the allegation, whether that's the person accused. So there's a lot of moving pieces to that.